Marcus Wellington adjusted his Italian silk tie as his black Mercedes pulled through the wrought iron gates of his Beverly Hills mansion. The 42-year-old real estate mogul had just closed another multi-million-dollar deal downtown, adding another property to his empire that stretched across 3 states. His perfectly manicured estate sprawled across 2 acres, complete with marble fountains, imported palm trees, and security cameras monitoring every corner. As the car rounded the circular driveway, Marcus noticed something unusual near his front gate. A young black woman, probably in her early 20s, was kneeling on the sidewalk outside his property. She wore faded jeans and a simple white t-shirt that had seen better days. Her natural hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and she appeared to be focused intently on something near the ground. Marcus frowned as his driver brought the vehicle to a stop. Through the tinted windows, he watched the woman more carefully. She was talking softly to what appeared to be a stray dog, a mangy-looking mixed breed with matted brown and white fur. The animal was clearly malnourished, its ribs visible through its dirty coat. The woman had opened a small paper bag and was carefully pulling out pieces of what looked like a sandwich. She broke off small portions and held them out to the nervous dog, speaking in gentle, encouraging tones. The animal approached cautiously, its tail tucked low, before quickly grabbing the food and backing away to eat. Marcus stepped out of his car, his handmade leather shoes clicking against the pristine concrete. His initial reaction was annoyance. This was an exclusive neighborhood where property values exceeded $5 million per home. Homeless animals and the people who fed them didn't belong here. His homeowners association had strict rules about maintaining the area's upscale image. "Excuse me?" Marcus called out, his voice carrying the authority he was accustomed to using in boardrooms. "You can't do that here." The young woman looked up, her dark eyes meeting his gaze without flinching. She had a gentle face with high cheekbones and smooth brown skin, but there was something determined in her expression that surprised him. "I'm sorry," she said politely, her voice soft but steady. "I'm not causing any trouble. I just noticed this dog has been wandering around here for a few days. And he looks hungry." Marcus glanced at the animal, which had finished the food, and was now watching them both warily from a safe distance. The dog's eyes were alert but fearful, and Marcus could see old scars on its muzzle and legs that suggested a difficult past. "This is a private neighborhood," Marcus said, his tone becoming more businesslike. "There are animal control services for situations like this. You can't just feed strays wherever you want." The woman stood up slowly, brushing dirt from her knees. She was shorter than Marcus had expected, probably around 5'4", but she held herself with quiet confidence. "I called animal control 3 days ago," she replied calmly. "They said they were understaffed and couldn't come out for at least a week unless the animal was aggressive or injured. This little guy isn't bothering anyone. He just needs some food and kindness." Marcus felt a flicker of irritation at her response. He was used to people deferring to his authority, especially in his own neighborhood. Most people recognized him from business magazines or local news features about successful entrepreneurs. "What's your name?" he asked, crossing his arms over his chest. "Zara," she answered simply. "Zara Johnson." "Well, Miss Johnson, I own that house," Marcus said, pointing toward his mansion with its towering columns and perfectly landscaped grounds. "And I'm telling you that feeding stray animals here is inappropriate. It encourages them to stay in the area, and that creates problems for residents." Zara looked at his house, taking in the obvious wealth and luxury, then back at him. Her expression remained calm, but Marcus caught a brief flash of something in her eyes that might have been disappointment. "I understand your concerns," she said carefully. "But this is a public sidewalk, and I'm not breaking any laws. I researched it before I started helping him." The fact that she had researched the legal aspects caught Marcus off guard. Most people in similar situations would have apologized and left immediately when confronted by someone of his obvious status and wealth. The dog had crept closer during their conversation, drawn by the remaining scent of food. It stopped about 10 feet away and sat down, watching Zara with hopeful eyes. "See?" Zara said softly, glancing at the animal. "He's already learned to trust me a little. That's progress." Marcus studied the scene with growing confusion. He had expected this to be a simple matter of telling someone to move along, but this woman wasn't responding as he had anticipated. She wasn't intimidated by his wealth or position, and she seemed genuinely committed to helping this animal. "Look," Marcus said, moderating his tone slightly. "I'm sure you mean well, but this isn't the place for this kind of thing. There are proper channels, animal shelters, organizations that handle these situations." "I volunteer at 3 different shelters," Zara replied quietly. "They're all overcrowded and understaffed. The kill rate for animals like this one is over 60% in this city. Sometimes the proper channels aren't enough." Her words carried a weight that made Marcus pause. He realized he knew nothing about animal shelters or their capacity issues. Such matters had never entered his world of luxury hotels, gourmet restaurants, and exclusive golf courses. The dog suddenly stood and walked closer to Zara, gently pressing against her leg. She reached down and carefully stroked its head, and Marcus could see the animal's tail give a tentative wag. "His name is Charlie," Zara said, looking up at Marcus. "At least that's what I've been calling him. Someone threw him away like garbage, but he still has so much love to give." Marcus found himself looking more closely at the animal. Despite its rough appearance, he could see intelligence in the dog's eyes and a gentle nature in how it interacted with Zara. "How do you know someone threw him away?" Marcus asked, surprising himself with the question. "He was wearing a collar when I first saw him, but no tags. It was too tight, like he'd outgrown it and no one cared enough to get a bigger one." "And look at these scars," she said, gently showing Marcus some marks on the dog's neck. "These are from a chain or rope that was left on too long. Someone kept this dog tied up for months, maybe years." Marcus stared at the evidence Zara was showing him. He had never owned a pet himself, considering them too much responsibility and mess for his carefully controlled lifestyle. But even he could see that what she was describing represented neglect and cruelty. "Why do you care so much?" he found himself asking. Zara was quiet for a moment, continuing to pet Charlie gently. "Because everyone deserves a chance," she said finally. "Animals, people, everyone. Just because someone is inconvenient or doesn't fit into a perfect picture doesn't mean they don't matter." Her words hung in the air between them. Marcus felt an unexpected discomfort, as if her simple statement had touched on something he preferred not to examine too closely. The afternoon sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows across the manicured lawns of the neighborhood. Marcus noticed that several of his neighbors had appeared at their windows or on their porches, watching the unusual scene unfolding on their exclusive street. "People are staring," Marcus said, gesturing toward the obvious attention they were receiving. Zara glanced around and shrugged. "Let them stare. Charlie needs help more than I need their approval." Her complete indifference to the judgment of wealthy, influential people was something Marcus had rarely encountered. In his world, everyone was constantly aware of appearances and social standing. The next morning, Marcus found himself glancing out his office window toward the street corner where he had encountered Zara and the dog. He tried to focus on his work, reviewing contracts for a new shopping complex in Orange County, but his concentration kept drifting. By noon, curiosity got the better of him. Marcus left his home office and walked to the front window that offered a clear view of the street. Sure enough, Zara was there again, sitting cross-legged on the sidewalk with the dog lying peacefully beside her. She appeared to be reading a book while Charlie dozed in the afternoon sun. Marcus watched for several minutes, noting how the animal seemed completely relaxed in her presence. Yesterday, the dog had been nervous and skittish. Today, it looked content and safe. His housekeeper, Maria, appeared beside him carrying a dust cloth. "That young lady has been there every day this week," Maria said in her gentle Spanish accent. "She brings food and water for the dog. Very kind heart, that one." Marcus turned to look at Maria, a woman in her 50s who had worked for him for 3 years. "You've been watching them?" "Hard not to notice," Maria replied with a slight smile. "The dog was skin and bones when she first started caring for it. Look at him now." Marcus looked back outside and realized Maria was right. In just a few days, Charlie already appeared healthier. His coat looked cleaner, and he moved with more energy. "Did you talk to her?" Marcus asked. "Yesterday when I was bringing in the mail. Nice girl. She's a veterinary student at UCLA, works part-time at an animal clinic in East LA to pay for school." This information surprised Marcus. He had assumed Zara was simply an animal lover with too much time on her hands. Learning that she was pursuing veterinary medicine put her actions in a different context. "She's studying to be a vet, and she's spending her free time helping a stray dog?" Marcus said, more to himself than to Maria. "Some people, they see a need, and they help," Maria replied quietly. No questions asked. That afternoon, Marcus found himself taking an unusual route to his car, one that happened to pass near where Zara sat with Charlie. The dog noticed him first, looking up alertly, but without the fear Marcus had seen the day before. "Good afternoon," Zara said politely as he approached. "How is he doing?" Marcus asked, surprising himself again with his genuine interest. "Much better. He's gained 3 pounds already, and I managed to get most of the mats out of his fur. Want to see?" She gently lifted one of Charlie's paws to show Marcus. "His pads were cracked and bleeding when I found him. Look how much they've healed." Marcus found himself kneeling down to get a closer look. The difference was remarkable. Charlie's paws, which had been raw and damaged just days ago, were now pink and healing. "How did you know how to treat them?" Marcus asked. "I'm in my 3rd year of veterinary school," Zara explained. "I've learned basic wound care and nutrition. Plus, I work at a clinic where I see cases like this regularly." "That must be expensive. Veterinary school, I mean." Zara's expression became more guarded. "It is. But it's worth it. I've wanted to be a vet since I was 7 years old." Marcus noticed she didn't elaborate on how she was paying for her education, and he sensed it was a sensitive topic. He had never worried about the cost of anything, having inherited substantial wealth from his father's construction business before building his own real estate empire. "What will happen to Charlie when you finish school?" Marcus asked. "I'm hoping to find him a good home. He's such a gentle soul. He deserves a family who will love him properly." Charlie had been listening to their conversation with interest, his head moving back and forth between them as they spoke. When Marcus reached out slowly, the dog sniffed his hand carefully before allowing a brief pat on the head. "He's very trusting for an animal that's been abused," Marcus observed. "Animals are often more forgiving than people," Zara said. "They don't hold grudges the way we do. Charlie knows I'm helping him, so he chooses to trust me, despite what humans have done to him in the past." Marcus found this observation unexpectedly profound. In his business dealings, trust was a commodity to be earned through contracts and legal agreements. The idea of trusting purely based on consistent kindness was foreign to him. "I should let you get back to your studying," Marcus said, standing up. "Actually," Zara said hesitantly, "I wanted to thank you." "Thank me? For what?" "For not calling animal control or having me removed from the area. I know you could have made things difficult for Charlie and me." Marcus felt an uncomfortable twist in his stomach. The truth was, he had considered both of those options the night before. His first instinct had been to solve this problem through authority and legal channels. "I'm glad Charlie is getting better," Marcus said simply. As he walked back to his car, Marcus found himself thinking about Zara's dedication. She was spending her own money, time, and energy to help an animal that offered her nothing in return except companionship. It was a kind of generosity that existed outside any business model or social expectation. That evening, Marcus did something he rarely did. He researched veterinary school costs and animal shelter statistics online. What he discovered bothered him more than he expected. The average veterinary student graduated with over $200,000 in debt. Animal shelters across Los Angeles were indeed overcrowded, with euthanasia rates exceeding 50% for dogs like Charlie. The city's animal control services were understaffed and underfunded, exactly as Zara had claimed. Marcus also learned that veterinary medicine had one of the highest suicide rates among all professions, largely due to the emotional stress of the work combined with crushing student loan debt. People entered the field wanting to help animals, but often found themselves financially trapped and emotionally overwhelmed. The next day, Marcus found himself deliberately timing his lunch break to coincide with Zara's usual visit to Charlie. He told himself he was simply curious about the dog's progress, but he knew it was more than that. When he approached, he noticed Zara looked tired. Dark circles under her eyes suggested she hadn't been sleeping well. "Long night at the clinic?" he asked. Zara looked surprised that he remembered her work schedule. "Emergency surgery. A dog was hit by a car. We worked until 3 in the morning, but we saved him." "That must be exhausting, especially when you're also taking classes." "It is," she admitted. "But every life we save makes it worthwhile." Marcus watched as she carefully examined Charlie's ears, checking for signs of infection with the thoroughness of a trained professional. Her movements were confident and gentle, clearly informed by her medical training. "Can I ask you something?" Marcus said. "Why did you choose veterinary medicine specifically?" Zara was quiet for a moment, continuing her examination of Charlie. "My grandmother raised me after my parents died in a car accident when I was 6. She cleaned houses for wealthy families to support us. One family had this old golden retriever named Duke, who was suffering from cancer." She paused, her hands stilling on Charlie's fur. "The family wanted to have Duke put down because treatment would be expensive, but my grandmother begged them to let her pay for it. She worked extra hours for months to cover the vet bills. Duke lived 2 more happy years because of her kindness." Marcus felt something shift in his chest as he listened to her story. "My grandmother taught me that every life has value, regardless of what someone else thinks it's worth. When she died during my freshman year of college, I changed my major from business to pre-veterinary studies. I wanted to honor her memory by helping animals the way she helped Duke." The weight of her words settled over Marcus. Zara wasn't just helping Charlie out of general kindness. She was carrying forward a legacy of compassion that had been passed down from someone who had sacrificed greatly to save a life that others had deemed expendable. Marcus realized that his own wealth and success, while impressive, had never required him to sacrifice anything meaningful for someone else's benefit. Everything in his life had been about accumulation and achievement, not about giving or protecting the vulnerable. Charlie had fallen asleep during Zara's examination, his head resting peacefully against her leg. The trust between them was complete and absolute. "Your grandmother sounds like an extraordinary woman," Marcus said quietly. "She was," Zara replied, her voice soft with memory. "She used to say that how we treat those who can't help us in return reveals who we really are." 2 weeks passed, and Marcus found his daily routine increasingly centered around the brief conversations he shared with Zara and Charlie. What had started as curiosity had evolved into something he couldn't quite name. He began timing his morning coffee to coincide with their arrival and his evening walks to overlap with their departure. Charlie had transformed dramatically under Zara's care. His coat now gleamed with health, and he had gained enough weight to look like a completely different dog. More importantly, his personality had emerged. He was playful, intelligent, and affectionate, greeting Marcus each day with enthusiastic tail wags and gentle nudges for attention. "Someone's going to be very lucky to adopt him," Marcus commented one afternoon as Charlie performed a series of tricks that Zara had taught him. "Actually," Zara said, her voice carrying a note of concern, "I'm having trouble finding him a home. I've contacted every rescue organization and posted on all the adoption websites, but nobody seems interested." "Why not? He's a great dog. He's not a purebred, he's middle-aged, and he's black and brown. Those three factors make him very difficult to place." Zara's frustration was evident in her voice. "People want puppies, preferably with papers. Dogs like Charlie get overlooked." Marcus felt a familiar surge of irritation, but this time it wasn't directed at Zara. "That's ridiculous. Charlie is obviously intelligent and well-behaved." "I know," Zara agreed. "But that's the reality of animal rescue. The most deserving animals are often the hardest to help." That evening, Marcus found himself researching dog adoption statistics. What he learned disturbed him deeply. Black dogs were statistically less likely to be adopted from shelters, a phenomenon that rescue workers called black dog syndrome. Older dogs faced similar discrimination, despite often being calmer and better trained than puppies. The injustice of it bothered Marcus in a way he hadn't expected. Charlie wasn't being judged on his character or behavior, but on superficial characteristics he couldn't control. The next morning brought an unexpected development. Marcus arrived at his usual time to find Zara absent, but Charlie was still there, tied to a street sign with a bowl of water and a note that read, "Emergency at work. Back this afternoon. Thank you for watching him. Z." Marcus stared at the note in amazement. Zara had trusted him to look after Charlie, despite knowing him for only a few weeks. The responsibility felt both significant and surprisingly welcome. He spent the next hour sitting on the sidewalk beside Charlie, taking business calls while the dog napped in the shade. Several neighbors passed by, looking surprised to see the wealthy real estate mogul sitting on a public sidewalk with a rescue dog. Mrs. Henderson, who lived 3 houses down, stopped to chat. "Is that your dog, Marcus?" "He belongs to a friend," Marcus replied carefully. "He's very well behaved. I've been watching that young woman care for him. Quite dedicated, isn't she?" Marcus nodded, realizing that Zara's efforts hadn't gone unnoticed by others in the neighborhood. "You know," Mrs. Henderson continued, "my late husband always said you could judge a person's character by how they treat animals. That girl has a good heart." When Zara returned that afternoon, she found Marcus still sitting with Charlie, laptop open, conducting business as if it were perfectly normal to hold meetings from a sidewalk. "How did it go?" she asked, clearly relieved to see Charlie safe and content. "Fine. He's excellent company. Very professional during my conference calls." Zara laughed, the first genuinely carefree sound Marcus had heard from her. "He's a good listener. I tell him all my problems." "What happened at work?" "A family brought in their cat after it was attacked by a dog. 3 hours of surgery, but we managed to save her. The little girl who owns the cat was so worried she made her parents sleep in the clinic parking lot all night." Marcus was struck by the contrast between their morning crises. His had involved a delayed permit for a commercial development. Hers had involved saving a child's beloved pet. "Do you ever get tired of it? The emotional intensity, I mean." "Every day," Zara admitted. "But then something like today happens, and you remember why it matters. That little girl's face when we told her the cat would be okay, that's what keeps me going." As they talked, Marcus noticed Zara's phone buzzing constantly with notifications. She ignored them at first, but eventually glanced at the screen and frowned. "Everything okay?" "Just my landlord. He's been texting about the rent. It's due tomorrow and I'm still short." She tucked the phone away quickly, clearly uncomfortable discussing financial matters. "How short?" "It's not your problem," Zara said firmly. "I'll figure something out. I always do." Marcus felt an unexpected urge to offer help, but something in Zara's tone warned him that his assistance wouldn't be welcome. Her independence was clearly important to her, even when it came at personal cost. That evening, Marcus couldn't stop thinking about Zara's situation. He did some discreet research and learned that veterinary students often struggled financially, as their demanding schedules made it difficult to work enough hours to cover living expenses. The next day, Zara didn't appear at her usual time. Marcus waited for an hour before walking to the spot where Charlie typically stayed. The dog was gone, and there was no sign of either of them. Concerned, Marcus asked Maria if she had seen them. "The young lady came by very early this morning," Maria reported. "She looked upset. She took the dog and left quickly." Marcus felt a strange panic. Had something happened to Charlie? Had Zara been forced to surrender him to animal control? Had financial pressure driven her away from the neighborhood entirely? He spent the afternoon making calls to local animal shelters and veterinary clinics, claiming to be looking for his lost dog. No one had any record of Charlie being brought in. That evening, Marcus did something unprecedented. He drove to East LA to look for the clinic where Zara worked. He found it in a strip mall between a laundromat and a taco shop. The neighborhood was a stark contrast to Beverly Hills, with modest homes and small businesses serving a working-class community. Through the clinic's window, he could see Zara at the front desk, talking to an elderly Hispanic man holding a small white dog. Even from outside, Marcus could see that she looked exhausted and stressed. He waited in his car until the clinic closed, then approached as Zara locked up. "Marcus," she said, clearly surprised. "What are you doing here?" "I was worried. You didn't come by today, and Charlie wasn't there." "I couldn't afford to keep him anymore," Zara said quietly. "I had to make a choice between rent money and dog food, and I can't help other animals if I'm homeless." "Where is he?" "I found a temporary foster family through a friend at school. They can keep him for a month while I try to find a permanent home." Zara's voice cracked slightly. "I hated leaving him. He kept looking back at me when I walked away." Marcus felt something he rarely experienced: helplessness. All his wealth and business connections seemed useless in the face of Zara's genuine struggle to do good in a world that made kindness, economically, unsustainable. "There has to be another option," he said. "There is," Zara replied with a sad smile. "I could give up and let animal control handle cases like Charlie's. It would be easier. But my grandmother didn't raise me to take the easy path when lives are at stake." Standing in that parking lot, surrounded by the sounds and smells of a neighborhood he rarely visited, Marcus realized that everything he thought he knew about success and value had been challenged by a young woman who owned almost nothing but gave everything. "Can I see him? Charlie, I mean. Just to make sure he's okay." Zara studied his face carefully. "Why do you care so much? You didn't even want me feeding him a few weeks ago." Marcus considered her question seriously. "I'm not sure," he admitted, "but I do care, more than I expected to." The foster family lived in a small apartment complex 20 minutes from the clinic. When they arrived, Marcus was introduced to the Rodriguez family: Maria Elena, her husband Roberto, and their 2 young children, Sofia and Miguel. Charlie was in their tiny backyard playing fetch with the kids. The moment Charlie saw Zara, he abandoned the game and raced to her, his entire body wiggling with joy. When he noticed Marcus, His tail wagged even harder, as if greeting two beloved friends. "He's been good dog," Maria Elena said in careful English. "But we cannot keep long time. Too many animals already, and husband work only part-time since factory close." Marcus looked around the modest apartment and realized that this family, who clearly had very little, had opened their home to help Charlie simply because Zara had asked. Their generosity put his own wealthy neighborhood to shame. As they prepared to leave, Sophia, who couldn't have been older than 7, hugged Charlie goodbye and whispered something in his ear in Spanish. "What did she say?" Marcus asked Zara during the drive back. "She told him that someone special would come for him soon. Children often understand things better than adults do." That night, Marcus couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about Charlie's joyful reunion with Zara and the Rodriguez family's quiet sacrifice. He thought about Mrs. Henderson's words about judging character by how people treat animals. Most of all, he thought about Zara's grandmother and her belief that true character was revealed in how we treat those who can't help us in return. The next morning, Marcus made a decision that would have surprised him a month earlier. He called his lawyer and his accountant, then spent the afternoon making arrangements that went far beyond anything he had ever done for someone outside his immediate business circle. He found Zara at the clinic that evening, just finishing her shift. "I have a proposition for you," he said without preamble. Zara looked suspicious. "What kind of proposition?" "I want to help with Charlie, and I want to help you finish veterinary school." "Marcus, I told you I can't accept charity." "It's not charity," Marcus interrupted. "It's an investment. I'm starting a veterinary clinic in Beverly Hills. High-end clientele, state-of-the-art equipment, full-service animal hospital. I need a partner who understands both excellent medical care and genuine compassion for animals." Zara stared at him in shock. "You can't be serious." "I'm completely serious. I'll cover your remaining tuition and living expenses. In exchange, you'll work at the clinic after graduation and help me learn this business properly. Charlie will live with me until you're ready to take him permanently." "You want to adopt Charlie?" "Temporarily. My house has a big yard, and he already trusts me. More importantly, I think I need him as much as he needs a home." Zara was quiet for a long moment, clearly overwhelmed. "Why are you doing this?" Marcus considered his answer carefully. "Because you've shown me something I didn't know I was missing. I've spent my entire adult life building wealth and acquiring property, but I've never built anything that actually mattered. This clinic could save hundreds of animals like Charlie, and working with you could teach me what my grandmother tried to teach you. That real success isn't measured by what we accumulate, but by what we're willing to give." "Your grandmother?" "No," Marcus said with a smile. "Your grandmother. Her wisdom just took a while to reach me." Zara wiped tears from her eyes. "She would have liked you, I think. Eventually. Will you consider it?" "On one condition. The clinic has to serve low-income families too, not just wealthy clients. We'll need to find a way to make good medical care accessible to people who love their animals, but can't afford Beverly Hills prices." "Deal," Marcus agreed immediately. "We'll set up a fund for families who need help, and we'll partner with schools to provide educational programs about responsible pet ownership." 3 months later, the Beverly Hills Animal Medical Center opened its doors. The clinic's mission statement, prominently displayed in the waiting room, read, "Every life has value regardless of what someone else thinks it's worth." Charlie had settled into his new life at Marcus's mansion with surprising ease. The formerly homeless dog now had his own bedroom, a professional groomer, and a large yard where he could play fetch with Marcus every evening. More importantly, he had become a therapy dog for the clinic, providing comfort to anxious animals and their worried families. Zara graduated from veterinary school with honors and no debt. On her graduation day, Marcus gave her a gift, a small bronze statue of a golden retriever with a plaque that read, in memory of Duke and the woman who taught us that kindness is never wasted. The clinic's success exceeded all expectations. Word spread quickly about the veterinary team that combined cutting-edge medical technology with genuine compassion. Wealthy clients paid premium prices for excellent care, which allowed the clinic to provide free services to families in need. Marcus discovered that his business skills, when applied to helping rather than just accumulating, created a satisfaction he had never experienced in real estate development. Every animal they saved, every family they helped, every life they improved added meaning to his existence that no profit margin had ever provided. 6 months after the clinic opened, Zara officially adopted Charlie, but he continued to split his time between her apartment and Marcus's mansion. The arrangement worked perfectly, giving Charlie 2 families who loved him and giving Marcus and Zara an excuse to see each other daily. One evening, as Marcus watched Zara examine a rescued puppy while Charlie supervised from his bed in the corner, he reflected on how dramatically his life had changed. A year earlier, his biggest concern had been property values and neighborhood aesthetics. Now he found himself worrying about vaccination schedules and adoption success rates. "Do you ever regret it?" Zara asked, seemingly reading his thoughts. "Giving up your quiet, predictable life for all this chaos?" Marcus looked around the clinic at the evidence of their shared mission. Photos of successfully adopted animals, thank you cards from grateful families, Charlie sleeping peacefully after another day of bringing comfort to scared and hurting creatures. "Never," he said honestly. "You showed me that the most valuable things in life can't be bought or built. They can only be given freely to those who need them most." Charlie opened one eye at the sound of his voice, tail thumping once against his bed in sleepy acknowledgement, then returned to his dreams. Outside, Beverly Hills continued its relentless pursuit of perfection and status. But inside the clinic, 3 beings who had found each other by chance had created something far more precious than wealth or prestige. They had created a place where love was measured not by what someone could afford to pay, but by what they were willing to sacrifice for the welfare of another. And in that small space filled with healing and hope, Marcus finally understood what success actually looked like.